everyone, welcome to today's writing vlog. If this is your first writing vlog from me that you have seen, hello, my name is Claire. I am working on a YA fantasy manuscript that I hope to query sometime this year to get it traditionally published. That is very much the path that I am seeking to go on. I have been working on this book for almost 2 years, but since I have never written a book before, let alone a epic fantasy, it has been quite the journey. I have a secret editor friend that I've been sending chapters off to and getting incredible, if not harsh, feedback for. The manuscript has been done, at least the first draft of it, for over a year at around 89,000 words. So now I'm just going through and being really harsh, polishing it up. I recently rewrote for like the 15th time the first chapter, and my editing friend said that it was the best version that she's read, that she really loves it. So I feel very confident about this first chapter, which makes me feel better about moving forward. But since we are in lockdown with the coronavirus pandemic, which, by the way, make sure you wash your hands, social distancing, be safe, be considerate of others who may be at higher risk. But I cannot work for the next 2 weeks. I am trying to focus on really getting through my manuscript edits. So today I'm going to focus on my chapter 2 through 5. These chapters have already been written and edited and re-edited, but now that there's some new information and scenes in my chapter 1, so I need to make sure that information is woven throughout. Leading up to the big reveal in chapter 5, I have some things to edit. If you've been keeping up with my weekly reading and writing vlogs, then you know chapter 2 has also given me a little bit of work. I just have a few things, a few notes that my editing friend has given me to really polish up that second chapter. And then once that's done, but I don't think that will take up too much time, and then I can work really focusing on 3 through 5. I think 3 will also need a decent amount of edits, but I think 4 and 5 will be easier in theory. I always think that though. I never think editing will take as long as it ends up taking me. Today, I'm not going to focus on video editing. I'm not going to focus on reading. I am only going to focus on writing, so hopefully I can get through basically my first act, and I'll take you guys along with me. So I will check back in a little bit. So I just got back from walking my dogs. It's actually a really beautiful spring day. But anyway, it is exactly, look at that, 11 a.m. So I'm going to get started on editing my chapter 2 using the notes that my secret editor friend sent to me. What I'm also going to do is use the Forest app, so that way I don't get even tempted to look or check on my phone during this next, I'll say, hour or so. I think that's how long it's going to take me to really polish up this chapter 2. Hopefully it takes less than that, so I can just immediately start on chapter 3. I will check back in with you guys in an hour though. Beep. All right, so I think I'm finished up with my chapter 2. That actually wasn't too difficult, and I definitely think it made the chapter stronger. There are still some questions that my editing friend sent back to me that aren't specifically addressed in this chapter, but I think it will fit better in the chapter 3 that I now have to revise. Especially for the first half of chapter 3, there's going to need to be quite a bit of revision. I think I'll be able to do some like copy and pasting, and it won't hopefully take up too much time, but I think there's going to be a little bit of drafting involved because there's kind of a new, I don't want to say new scene, but kind of a new way of placing previous events together, kind of, you know, chopping things up and smashing them. Is that a good metaphor? I don't know. And that's where I think it will be more appropriate to address some of her other concerns that she sent to me in her last email, or not really concerns, but just questions that she had involving this sibling relationship. Because something that I have struggled with previous iterations of my book, and if you watched my weekly reading and writing blog, then you watch me in real time struggle with this, is that I have a tendency to try to put all the information that I have in my head too much too quickly. And something that I've really had to teach myself is to spread that out over time. I don't need to put everything that's going on and all the nuances of this sibling relationship into chapter 2. I have time to spread that out a little bit. There wasn't enough to really ground the reader in at least what their relationship is like currently, but I don't need to put 100% of that into a chapter 2. I think I put in just enough so we get an idea of what it is and where everyone's headspace is at. But now in chapter 3, I can kind of flesh that out a little bit. And then the rest of the book obviously fleshed that out even more. It doesn't all have to be at once. Info dumping is definitely something that I struggled with. And then I think I restrained myself in a little too much with my previous chapter 2 iteration. And now I have to like try to find a balance. So anyway, I'm starting to get hungry. I'm gonna go eat, and then we're gonna work on chapter 3. So I will check in with you guys in a little bit. All right, guys, so I had a little bit of an intermission between walking my dogs, and I was called by 2 different friends that I wanted to catch up with, who I haven't talked to since the whole COVID-19 outbreak. But now I need to go back to working on these chapters. One of those friends I talked to was my secret editor friend, I will say, and I kind of discussed with her my plans for chapter 3, which is a little bit of a mesh of old parts of chapter 2 and lingering parts of old chapter 3. It gets kind of hard to how to talk about all these different edits and different drafts. After talking to her about it, I struggled a little bit because I had my main character go to one location, and I felt that it was important for the world building that he ends up in this location, but then I was going to have him move back to this other location so he could have this interaction with a specific character that was very important. And she was like, well, cut the second location, have him stay in the first location that you were planning, and have the secondary character meet him at that location. And I was like, okay, that's way stronger. And then they're alone for this interaction that gets kind of tense. So that's what I'm going to work on. After that, and I hope I'm not repeating myself too much, but after I get done with this chapter 3, I don't know if it will be ready to send off to my secret editing friend for feedback. I generally like to, when I do a lot of edits, I like to wait one day, like do what I can, wait a day to read through it. I like to have a little bit of distance, so I'll probably send it out to her tomorrow. But once that's through, the chapters 4 and 5 should be pretty decently easy edits. I don't know. We'll find out once I'm done with chapter 3. All right, hello, writer friends. So I didn't really give you a send off of what I did yesterday, but just, well, like I said, worked a lot on the end of my chapter 3. So it's not completely done, and I definitely need to go back and reread what I wrote yesterday, because I have a tendency when I'm drafting, I just get super excited. I wouldn't say that I draft the cleanest. I'll like skip words or, you know, just do wacky stuff like that. Chapter 4, I think, will need little to no editing. Chapter 5, I have some edit notes that I'm going to add, but they're pretty fun and pretty easy, honestly. There'll be a few things. I think chapter 5 might need a little bit more work than I'm anticipating, although I got very good feedback from my editing friend a few weeks back when she read over it. But there's definitely some interactions that I want to add or pump up a little bit. But like I said, this should be really fun. I love doing character interactions. That's my favorite part of writing. Once that's done, I hope I can get through those 3 chapters today. because chapter 6 is the climax of the first act. It's the turning point. It's the big event that sets off the rest of the story. I talked to my editing friend last night, like I said, and something that I talked about, I was just like, I'm planning on querying this as a YA fantasy. And that has been a struggle to decide to do that, because while my main character is young, he's 17, and kind of all the major players, not all of them, but I would say more than half of them are also in that age range, like 16, 17, 18. That doesn't necessarily make it young adult. You can have young protagonists in adult stories, you know, especially in fantasy. I think of Name of the Wind or Red Rising, but YA just has such a fast-paced feel to it. They focus much more on plot and having a fast plot than they do on world building. That is definitely a very distinct YA feel to it, and I would say that while I'm definitely trying to make sure that momentum is good and that the interest is there and that things are happening and there's mystery to pull the reader through the story, I do think it takes its time to set things up. And I was talking to her about it. I'm like, ooh, I like that. I prefer that when I read, but I hope that somehow isn't a problem when I end up querying it. And she is a big fan of the Hunger Games, and so she kind of used that as an example, not in content by any means, but she said that my story kind of reminds her pacing wise of the Hunger Games, because she thinks a lot of YA books, especially now, would start minutes before, what is it called, the reaping, where they draw the name. She said that she thinks a lot of modern YA books would start there, but the Hunger Games starts the day before, and it does take like several chapters to kind of set things up and set up the world and Katniss and the family dynamic, and then gets to the reaping. My manuscript has always reminded her of that a little bit. What a compliment. I will take it. That definitely put me at ease a little bit. So it's about 10 o'clock, 10:30, so I need to get started on my project, especially because I'm going to be playing some games tonight. But yeah, so I will check in with you guys later today. Hey everyone, happy Monday. So I did not do any vlogging yesterday on Sunday. That's because I did not do any writing yesterday on Sunday. That was a very video editing focused day. So we are back to heavily focusing on my writing instead for the rest of today. So I'm going to reread what I wrote for my third chapter, which I finished up rewriting and editing on Saturday. So I'm going to reread that with fresh eyes and see what I need to do, if there's any changes I can make, and then send it off to my editing friend to look at. And then just get to work on chapter 4, which I suspect will need little to potentially no editing. I haven't decided yet. I need to reread it. But then really work on chapter 5, which needs a decent amount of editing, but it's very fun. I'm basically adding more scenes of characters' interaction. I think I talked about this in the last clip, so that shouldn't be too hard. And then chapter 6 is where the start of the turning point, kind of the climax of Act 1 really begins. So I've been anxiously awaiting getting to that chapter, so we'll see how that fits in with all my new edits. So I'm gonna get to writing and I will check back in with you guys in a little bit. So I just finished up doing more sentence by sentence level of editing for my chapter 3, and I sent it off to my editing friend as well as a few other beta readers. Everyone else takes a while to respond to me, but my editor friend, not only is she really good, especially at content editing, she's really fast. She usually gets back to me in a day or two. I'm really excited to hear her feedback, although because we kind of discussed content-wise where the chapter should be going ahead of time, I have a feeling that she'll be into it. Maybe a few critiques about something really specific. At least I hope not anyway, because I'm very eager to move on from this first act of the story. I wanted to throw a few things out there that I do when I look at my story sentence by sentence rather than just larger plot or character or content level. I'm not a great speller or necessarily great with grammar. It's one of those things where not spelling I'm just not particularly great at, and I rely on my computer to pick up any of my mistakes for the most part. Grammar, it's more of an intuitive thing, but what I do look for beyond those two aspects is if I repeat myself. That's definitely something when I'm drafting. I tend to write out an idea and then write it out again in a different way. So then I go back through and see if I can either combine those sentences or ideas into something that's a little bit like briefer, punchier, more poignant, or if I just need to cut one and keep the other, or if there's just a different way entirely I can figure out what I'm trying to say. That's one of the key things that I look for. I have a tendency to do run-on sentences, so looking for those, or again, just to shorten the idea in general. I also find that sometimes I have an idea and then the next paragraph I'm kind of skipping to a new idea or just a new aspect of the scene. I think it reads better and flows better if I have almost a bit of a transition paragraph or scene or thought that connects these two otherwise disjointed paragraphs together. It's tricky when it's an internal thing that's going on with the character, but I want to make sure that everything is flowing and every part of what's going on in the story, whether it's physically happening, whether it's an internal thing or an emotional thing, you can follow it step by step and no one's getting lost, even if the journey along the way is a little bit complicated. So since I sent those off, I'm going to take a break by walking my dogs and probably listening to an audiobook or maybe even some writing advice by Alexa Dunn, who's an author tuber here on YouTube. Another big author tuber is Kate Kavanaugh. She tends to do a lot of writing vlogs, and she did a live stream last weekend. So I think I'm going to go back to that video and write/edit with that live stream. I think it's a drafting oriented writing sprint, and I'm not drafting, but I still really like to partake in those. So that's going to be my plan once I get back from walking the puppies. Hi lovelies, so it is Tuesday and I have been working on my manuscript quite a bit this morning, finishing up chapter, oh, they're all getting so confused in my head. 3, I think was the one, yeah, that I left you guys off with yesterday that I was just like, oh, it's not gonna take that long. Do you have the hiccups? But in the grand scheme of this manuscript, it hasn't taken that long. I'm just about to send it off to some beta readers, except I literally just remembered right before I did that I don't know if you guys do this when you are working on editing your writing, where sometimes I keep mental notes where I'm like, oh, don't forget to add this, don't forget to take away that. And there's a mental note I forgot to get to, and actually had to do with the character description. A new character was introduced. His description is really fun. And I was just like, oh, I don't think due to the copy and paste nature of this 3rd chapter, it just was one of those things that got lost in the mix. And I was just like, I need to make sure that I include that in the beginning of this chapter. And then right before I press send, I was like, oh, I forgot to do that. So I'm gonna go finish that up. It shouldn't take too long. And then I can just get to work on chapter 4, which is what I'm gonna spend the rest of the day working on. I like to think it will go by fairly quickly, but they never do. They never ever do. Editing, it's just something that I have to put all of my concentration into, and I really am trying to pay attention to every word, because sometimes I think when you know something very well, I know I do this, I've heard other authors talk about this, your eye will just naturally skip over certain parts of the sentence or whole sentences. I just have to focus extra hard on making sure I'm actually reading each each and every word, how those words relate to each other. Is that what I'm trying to say? Am I missing anything? Do I need to detract anything? How does that fit into the context of this paragraph? It's, you know, it takes more work than I think I ever give it credit for. So I know if I'm lucky, I will get done editing chapter 5 today, although there is drafting aspects involved, and that always takes more time than usual. I generally like to draft something. Sorry, my doggy's chewing on his bone. I like to draft and then you sleep on it at least, if not give myself an entire day before I go back and read what I drafted. My drafts just aren't particularly clean. I almost always have to go back through and change up word use and condense and find more creative ways or just more efficient ways to say what I'm trying to say. Almost always. That's why it's taken me for frickin' ever to get through this manuscript. I feel really good about the chapters that I have. I'm definitely very eagerly awaiting to get some feedback from my beta readers. I definitely want to know down below about what your guys' writing process is, especially when it comes to editing and how long it takes you to edit. I'll try to check it back in with you guys later today if I made any progress, and then I think I'll have one more update for you tomorrow, and then I'll have to get to work on getting this writing vlog up. So I will see you guys later. Do we like the little laptop board my old roommate gave to me before she moved out? And then this is the writing corner that I have been at for like the last 3 hours. So let me explain. I started working on this chapter 4, which is a really fun chapter because it is a party scene, not just any party scene, a Celtic inspired party scene. So lots of drinking, lots of dancing, lots of character interactions. It's a really fun scene before the not inciting incident, but like the climax of the first act that I've been talking about. There is a minor secondary character that got introduced in the last chapter, chapter 3, that my secret editor friend really likes. Everyone who's ever read that character has always really liked him because he's strong, distinctive, and has a minor role, but it's a very entertaining one. And she was like, include him more in the beginning of this chapter before you move on to the party scene, because she knows, as I know, this minor character kind of disappears for the majority of the book, because while he is fun, he's not super necessary, especially to the plot. I had an idea of how I was gonna kind of insert him into this beginning of chapter 4. What I thought was just going to be a little exchange turned into a whole scene that turned into 4 pages of drafting that I really love. I think it's fun and interesting, kind of insightful. There's still a little bit more, a little bit extra I need to throw in at the end, but my chapter 4, which was a really long chapter, it's significantly longer than what my average chapters are, which land somewhere between 6 to 8 pages, and as it currently stands, my chapter 4 of this party scene stands at around 15-16 pages. However, because of this new scene that I wrote, plus the additional mini scene that I still need to write, I'm going to split this chapter up, and so now this is my new chapter 4, and what will be my chapter 5 will actually be the party scene, like when we get into the party, not just leading up to the party. But I think it will be definitely not as obnoxiously long if it's split up. I'll definitely finish up this chapter 4 tomorrow morning, send that off to my friend. I'm so excited to get her feedback. I think she'll be really happy with what I did, because it's just, in my opinion, charming, and it's a little bit more humorous too, which I think is good because then things start to turn a little bit more dramatic in the climax when the big reveal happens and things get real intense and sad. That's where I'm at with these chapters. Time management is definitely something I'm still trying to figure out. I do want to try to get through this manuscript as quickly as I can, and it's not always the easiest thing to do, especially when new ideas come up or new ways to solve these problems that lead to something like today, where instead of just editing, I am straight up drafting a new scene for basically a new chapter. That's where I'm at, and I will check in with you guys again tomorrow. Hi everyone, so it is Thursday. Yes, I meant to film an update yesterday. Yes, I did write yesterday, but as you will see in an upcoming reading vlog, it was so obnoxiously nice out, like not a cloud in the sky, sunny, warm, that sitting down at a computer just wasn't possible until way later in the day. I think I actually started writing at like 7:30 last night, and I did finish out my chapter 5, and then this morning I just spent the last hour and a half doing what I have to do before I send a chapter out to my beta readers and secret editor friends, reading through, changing up some sentences, making sure what I wrote was coherent, adding a few things, and yeah, I really like the way this chapter turned out. When I sent it to my editor friend, I was like, randomly, a brand new chapter I wasn't expecting. A lot more of the character that you really like. Not particularly plot-y, but there's just such fun interactions and some really good internal character work, a little bit of history in there. I'm really excited to get her feedback on it. I think that's going to be the end of this week's writing vlog, but check back in because I think I'm going to be doing a weekly reading and writing vlog for the foreseeable future. Make sure to check back in and subscribe if you haven't already. Give this video a thumbs up. It lets me know that you like these kind of videos and you want me to continue specifically talking about writing in the future. Leave a comment down below with where you are in your writing process. Are you just drafting? Are you also editing? Are you editing for the first time, or are you in the same boat as me where you've already edited your manuscript 700 times but you're still working on it? Let me know down in the comments below. I love talking to you guys, and I will see you guys next week. Bye.